Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sulima Melendez, and I am the Communication Specialist with TMDSAS. And with us, we have TMDSAS Director Enrique Hasso, and he's going to go over a few of the statistics that were found now that the EY2022 application is now over and closed. And so now we have some statistics. So, Enrique, if you want to start us off.
Absolutely. And actually, before we get started, I just do want to make a quick announcement, just sharing, hey, y'all, we're here. We made it through the entry year 22 application cycle. We had a fantastic season. And before we do get started, I just want to applaud the entire pre-health world out there, all of our applicants out there who made it through the application. We know that it's not an easy thing to accomplish and keep up with everything that's going on. To all of our pre-health advisors out there who support applicants and make sure that they're up to date, huge kudos to you. You all make all of this happen. And for our member institutions who are currently in their frenzy time, getting folks interviewed and making sure that everything is going on, this is a really exciting time for us because at the end of the day, we are bringing in the next generation of healthcare professionals as part of this application cycle. So I just wanted to take a quick moment to give us a moment to reflect on all of the things that this represents. So as Sulima mentioned, I do have a presentation. Sulima, my screen sharing ability is not granted. So I'm gonna vamp and make sure that we make sure that everything is working on our end.
Okay, should be fixed now.
All right, thank you. I got it. Here we go. So yeah, for entry year 2022, we're going to take a look at this by the numbers. As you all know, throughout the cycle, we've been publishing month by month how many applicants have started an application, how many applicants submitted, and then we did that every month of the application except for the end, because at the end, we typically have a short wait in terms of our processing and making sure that all applications were transmitted. So thank you all so much for your patience while we transmitted all of these applications and finished all of those last minute adjustments or changes that needed to happen with some of the applications. And so let's go ahead and get started with our dental schools and this applicant pool. Oops. So for our dental applicant pool, we see that it actually kind of stayed a little bit close to where the numbers were for last year. Last year saw a historic high number of dental applicants at 1,065 total applicants that submitted a TMDSAS application. This year it dropped slightly to 1,048, which is still a really great number. In the grand scheme of things, you see here that back in 2019 for that entry year, we had 997, and then it dipped a little bit. And then last application cycle, we saw a pretty significant increase of 105 applicants. Now, for our matriculant number, obviously, we don't have those numbers yet for entry year 22. So keep an eye out at the Insight Health Education platform, on our newsroom, and on the TMDSAS website. So once that data is available to us, when all of the entry year 22 applicants actually matriculate and enroll at their schools in the fall, we'll be able to provide those new statistics. Now, taking a look at the academic average for our dental applicants, we see that the overall trend has pretty much stayed for our applicants at around a 20.0, 19.9, in that neighborhood of an average. But for our matriculants, that number's actually been dropping a little bit year over year. And I think one of the large attributing factors there has to do with just kind of a larger scope of holistic review that the dental schools are undergoing. And so I think this is kind of encouraging for those applicants who might not have made it quite into that 22 area for a DAT score or higher. I think this should be kind of helpful for you all to kind of see how important holistic review of your dental application is. And if you are an aspiring dentist, I do encourage you to take a look back at one of our earlier office hour sessions from, I believe, back in October, where Sulema and I were talking about the last minute things that applicants should do to prepare. And that one was focused solely on our dental applicants. So keep an eye out for that. And then also keep an eye out for some great new resources that we've got in the pipe right now for our aspiring dental students, because we definitely hear that you all need some help, and we're here to help. For the perceptual ability average number, rather for the section score, this number has stayed exactly the same as it was for last year, or 20.0. And year over year for matriculants from 2020 to 2021, that was also at a steady 20.7 average. For our entry year 2022 GPA, this is an overall GPA that only takes into account, actually takes into account everything. So this includes graduate, undergraduate coursework, BCPM, non-BCPM GPA, just every single course that applicants have attempted. We will have a closer breakdown available in the spring, so you can take a look at what BCPM averages look like as well. But for right now, we actually see that the average GPA for our dental applicants has actually increased quite significantly to 3.56. And so that's a kind of in a contrast to what we saw with the DAT scores. And so recently, as we mentioned, holistic review is such an important part of all of our member institutions' review of applications. And so seeing this GPA increase, I think it could really translate into seeing an increase in our matriculant GPA overall. And so if you are an aspiring dentist who's taking a look at this, just know that that GPA is climbing up, and it's something that you really want to make sure that you focus on and make sure that you are doing particularly well in your classes. And we're going to talk about that at the end of this. For our medical applicants, we see that the overall pool actually dipped a little bit by comparison of what we saw last year. Last year was just this historic number of applicants, not just to TMDSAS, but also to ACOMAS and AMCAS. And this year, it kind of subsided a little bit. But when we take a look at the overall trend, we actually see that the 6,763 applicants that applied is actually still a significantly higher number than what we saw as part of a larger trend. And so as an overall trend, these numbers are still quite high and are bringing up the overall 5-year average. For our matriculants, we could see a slight increase in our pool. There are some schools that are continuing to increase the sizes, but it would be very, very small as you saw the growth from EY2020 to EY2021. And this is largely due to so many different factors, like making sure that the schools have enough spots in their clinical curricula and making sure that they have the correct staffing and funding in order to meet those additional schools. So you'll recall that as we started bringing in some additional member institutions like UTRGV and Dell Medical School, those schools had some growth plans in terms of how many applicants they would admit their first X number of years, and then they would keep growing and growing as part of their overall pool. And so in the past 5 years, actually, we've seen an incredible number of new medical schools like Sam Houston State University, College of Osteopathic Medicine, University of Houston College of Medicine, and along with UTRGV and Dell Medical School. And so over the next few years, we're likely to see that matriculant number increase, along with some other schools that have recently announced some new partnerships, like I believe Texas A&M has a new partnership, and Baylor College of Medicine has a partnership up in Temple. And so those numbers are likely to continue to increase. For the MCAT averages, the number has actually gone up in terms of the average MCAT score for all of our applicants here. And so we see that it's a 0.6 increase in score. So we've finally broken through 507. We've seen a pretty substantial increase year over year of about a point or two since the new MCAT took place. And then for our matriculant pool, that number has also gone up. And again, you all are the ones driving these numbers and these increases for the medical applicant pool. They do still take into account holistic review. I do want to reemphasize that because it's very important to kind of recognize that this is just another number of your application. But as we've heard on the Courage sessions and on our application workshops earlier this year, the MCAT and the GPA for medical applicants are kind of your ticket in the door, at which point you're able to show that you are academically capable of handling the rigors of medical school, and you're prepared to take on these higher level sciences. And so in that instance, the MCAT is important, but also not as important as GPA. And again, in this pool, we've seen an increase in GPA to a 3.67 of our average applicants. And similarly, for our matriculant pool last year, when we saw that huge increase in applicants, the average score, or rather the average GPA stayed the same at 3.64. This year it's gone up. And then the average GPA for matriculants went up 0.02 rather, for matriculated students. And that's just because the applicants were more and more competitive just all around. And so with this more competitive GPA average for our medical applicants, we're likely to see a similar increase in our matriculant GPA. So we might be looking at a 3.83 average GPA for matriculants, but we won't know again until all of our folks enroll next fall. For our veterinary applicants, this is going to be a fun one to look at because we have seen some really incredible growth in this pool. In fact, from 2019 to 2022, the applicant pool has almost doubled in size. And yes, our veterinary schools are now attracting a larger applicant pool than our dental schools. And so this is a pretty substantial increase that we've seen. This is largely attributed, of course, to the addition of the Texas Tech Veterinary School of Medicine, School of Veterinary Medicine, rather, as well as a huge expansion that Texas A&M has done across the state in order to support more students. And so their names are out there, and we're also seeing that those matriculant pools are also increasing. So again, as soon as we see those matriculant numbers in the fall, we'll be able to report on them. And then in terms of those averages, as we saw with the medical applicants and with the dental applicants, the larger the pool, sometimes our GPA averages take a hit. And so what we've seen is kind of inversely related to the growth of the applicant pool. The GPA averages for our applicants has also gone down a little bit, but it's not far behind. And in fact, when we start taking a look at matriculant data, which is something new that we're reporting on, we're actually going to see that because there's a larger pool, those matriculant numbers are going to be more and more competitive. And so we're going to really want to focus our pre-veterinary applicants to really focus on the GPA, because as you know, that GRE went away in the past couple of years. And so the GPA is one of those important aspects of your application, along with your veterinary supervised hours and your animal handling animal experience hours that you have included in your application. Some of the schools have published what those requirements are, just the bare minimum for you to even be considered for review. And so the GPA is one of those areas where you really want to focus on in terms of your preparation. So I just shared a bunch of scary numbers of where we're at right now. So what's going to happen next? From right now to January, our veterinary schools are doing their interviews. And then in February, the veterinary acceptances will begin. On the 18th of February, that's for our medical applicants to submit their ranking of school preferences, which Sulema and the rest of the TMDSAS support team is working on some great resources to help you with that process. Again, that deadline is where you actually go into the TMDSAS application and you rank which schools you've interviewed at in your order of preference. And then again, for our medical applicants on March 4th, we have the TMDSAS match. And for our dental applicants, those acceptances have actually started going out a couple of weeks ago for this application cycle. So keep an eye out for those. But at the end of the day, we want you to stay focused. One bad semester is not going to have a major effect for the most part. It's really the trends that the schools are looking at. Now, if it's another bad semester, your second, your third, your sixth bad semester, that's when I think you should start worrying in terms of where you're at and taking a look at your overall growth path. And so one of the folks that you should really engage with is your health professions advisor. and your academic advisors to talk about grade repair, courses that you should be taking, any resources available on your campus, learning centers, office hour sessions with your professors, all of the resources that you already pay for as part of your tuition. Those are available to you to help you in these situations. These health professions advisors can also help you with goal setting. For example, saying by next semester, I want to be at a 3.8 instead of 3.6. If you're a freshman, that's much more likely than if you were a senior because there are more courses to work with as a senior. However, a health professions advisor, somebody can help you on that pathway, as well as setting goals for your test prep. And so don't forget that your health professions advisors are a great resource for you to figure out what it is that you should be doing on your tests, test prep for those of you that are taking the DAT or the MCAT, and making sure that you're on track with that. And at the end of the day, stay focused, because this is going to be a long-term marathon. And this is just one more semester that's added under your belt. And you're in it for the long haul. So just don't forget that, good semester or bad semester, celebrate the end of the semester, but get ready because the spring 2022 is right around the corner. And if this is your year to apply, then that may include some MCAT preparation and may include taking a more rigorous course load. If you're a sophomore or a junior, and for those of you that are freshmen, this might have been your wake-up call to say, hey, if you really want to continue on this pathway, you really need to stay focused. So that's what I have on my end, Sulema. But I'm happy to address any questions that have been coming into the chat or anything else that, any follow-up questions that may be coming in.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention briefly, really quick, because you had the deadlines page up. So just a reminder that the match and the ranking is for medical students, medical applicants who are Texas residents only. So if you're out of state, this is not applicable to you. So you guys have a straightforward acceptance process. And so what I can do is just link the article that we recently published about how those acceptances work for out-of-state applicants. Because that's a question that we get pretty often. So just we do have a resource now that fully explains what that looks like for out-of-state applicants. Just link it, and I don't believe we have any questions just yet, but let me just refresh my page. All right, so nothing so far yet. So this is like, again, a new way for us to go live. So we are testing the waters here to see how this works. And so we're just gonna give it a few more minutes just to see if anyone else has any questions. But as Enrique said, it's not too early to go ahead and start looking at this information to see how that's applicable to you as you get ready for the next application cycle, which opens in May.
And I think some of the key takeaways from the data that we saw is, the relationship that we see between growths in the applicant pool and the effects that has on some of the metrics like GPA, MCAT, or DAT scores. And so typically, and this is, what you would see with any growth in population is that you would see larger representation just throughout in terms of distribution. And so what we're really taking a look at here is focusing on those applicants and really zeroing in on these averages. But I think it's important to note that on the back end, something that we don't publish but make available to our member institutions is a representation of how these changes affect different populations. And so as you all know, we have through the TMDSAS application, our member institutions have data on underrepresented students in dentistry, medicine, and veterinary medicine. And so our schools have that data available to them. We also have information on your hometown. Anything that's available on your application is available to, so anything that you enter in your application is available to the schools rather. And so it's important for you all to know that we're seeing these changes, and they might be, just a 0.4 increase in MCAT. But on our end, behind the scenes, we're really working on identifying what the contributing factors were for that. And so, for example, with these increases in GPA that we're seeing across the board, that could be largely attributed to a lot of courses moving to pass-fail in the past year and a half. Of course, when you have pass-fail courses, those don't necessarily affect your GPA unless you fail the course, in which case it creates a 0 on that applicant. And so we're seeing, by knowing that piece of the puzzle, we know that applicants that may be taking pass-fail options would be, passing the courses. Otherwise, we would see a dip in the GPA. Another piece of that puzzle is making sure that our BCPM GPAs are representative of the applicants that we're getting and are representative of their performance in courses that are taught in biology, chemistry, physics, and math departments, and making sure that all of those GPAs also follow that same trend. And so whenever we see any changes in the trends, our immediate action at TMDSAS is to make sure that we study who's driving those trends. And we actually did quite an intense dive into last year's applicant pool growth to make sure that that growth was represented across the board, that we didn't have more representation of one type of applicant in terms of socioeconomic status, in terms of a specific university or college, a specific region, that those applicants were equitably represented. And that's exactly what we saw in the growth last year, is that top to bottom, every area that we took a look at, whether it be veteran applicants, non-traditional applicants, reapplicants, the growth was across the board, which was fantastic to see that everybody benefited from that growth. And so for this application cycle, our next step is really going to be taking a look at who's driving these changes, what we can do, and what recommendations we might offer to our pre-health advisors on how to better support applicants for this next application cycle. And then also sharing that feedback with our member institutions, which we've done earlier this fall, and then again in the spring before our new application opens, to make sure that they have the data that they need to make better decisions about holistic review at their institutions, in comparison to the aggregate data that we see at TMDSAS.
Yeah, so thank you very much for hitting on those points, Enrique. Again, and I do think it's important to note that whenever you're filling out the application, so the specific questions that are being asked, to answer those truthfully, so that way we can have accurate data, and because it ultimately does benefit the applicants for us to have that information available for the member institutions. And I also did want to just quickly point out again, so that our applicants are aware of this. So a lot of times in the beginning of the cycle, we do get questions about the metrics. So what GPA do I have to have? What MCAT do I have to make me competitive? And so I think it's very interesting how you mentioned that it's not necessarily the schools that set those metrics, those averages, it's the applicant pool. Correct. And I believe it's only the veterinary schools that have that minimum GPA requirement, and they do have that explicitly listed on their websites. But the medical and dental schools kind of go off of what the applicant pool looks like. So it's the applicants who are setting those numbers.
Exactly. And I think that's another area to kind of focus on each person's individual journey, because at the end of the day, the average is a snapshot. But what's the story behind that average? What led to you earning that GPA? The positive and the negative. And that's really why the TMDSAS application is so important, because it offers you an opportunity to discuss what your journey's been like, share insights into a good semester, a bad semester, the activities that you've been engaged in. If you see a dip in your GPA, was that attributed to you working and contributing to your family, or was that affected by just a bad semester that you had to Q drop some courses? There's just so much that you can share part of your story in the TMDSAS application. I think so many applicants kind of overlook a little bit. And so our goal with the Texas Health Education Service and TMDSAS is to make sure that you leverage those opportunities to tell your story, so that when we're looking at numbers, when we're looking at MCAT and averages and all of that, we're not just seeing a number, we're seeing your story and what it is that attributed to the application that you have put together for review.
Yeah, so I think it also touches a little bit on the other question that we generally get, which is, will this low GPA that I had this semester, or this grade, or this bad MCAT score, will that cause my application to be tossed out? And I know it's a huge concern for applicants, is wondering if there's one little mistake or one little thing that's going to cause their opportunity to get into their school or even be reviewed at in the first place. But there's not a reason why they'll toss out your application. So they'll see, yes, they'll see everything that you have on your application, but they're not going to see that little dip in your GPA and then just toss out your application. They do consider everything else that you have, of course, the trends and everything else that you've had going on, to explain why there was a small dip, but just seeing you recover is what they are mainly focused on.
Yeah, and just like one area of your application is not going to cause the application to be thrown out.
Yeah.
One area of your application is not going to cause your application to lead to an acceptance or matriculant status. It's a whole thing. You know, you may have a 528 MCAT and a 4.0 GPA, but if you have no activities to back that up, that doesn't serve you well, because you're showing that you can regurgitate information and do well academically. But what does that mean for your future patients if you have zero personal skills, or interpersonal skills rather, or if you haven't really challenged yourself to engage more with your community, with healthcare in your community, just with other people, and understand the human condition? And so it's on both sides. You know, on one end we have applicants who need to, you know, repair their GPA. On the other end, we may have applicants who need to work on their activities and make sure that they're better engaged, to show that they're on this pathway and they're setting a course for making sure that they are using their abilities, that they're using their skills to better serve others.
Yes, and thank you for pointing that out, because it isn't just one spec or one piece of the application, that's everything. And that's, again, reflecting what we tell all applicants, it's that it's a holistic review. So it's everything, it's a whole application. Also, I think it would be, when would you say this information will be available? So we do have this, obviously it's going to be a recording on our YouTube page, YouTube channel page. And then do you know maybe when this information will be available on our website?
Yes, this will be available in, let's say, mid-February. We're currently working on a really kind of like a secret project that's going to revamp how we present stats. And so what I can tell you all is that these data will be made available to you all in mid-February, and you'll be able to take a closer look at an unprecedented level into all of the different factors that go into these GPAs. And so you'll be able to slice the data in new ways, and you'll be able to take a look at a global pool that is going to be more representative and gives you a better glimpse into what the schools have access to in terms of average data or overall global data from TMDSAS.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I think that, yeah, so again, it's mid-February. Be on the lookout. We're not going to hide anything from y'all. It's just making sure that it's all in a nice way for you guys to have it on the silver platter, just presented to y'all. All right, and we don't have any questions just yet. Again, this is probably because it's the new platform, but that's okay, because again, this is going to be available on the YouTube channel. And I believe maybe we can start wrapping it up. But I do want to mention that we, now that it's the off season, the application cycle has closed, we are still going to be doing TMDSAS office hours. We do want to make sure that we are still letting you guys know what's going on, keep you guys informed. And so we're looking at maybe about once a month. The next one will be January 10th. Let me just confirm my date, because last time I had a different date for today, this month, and it was on a weekend. No one's available on the weekend. So let me just confirm. It is going to be on Monday the 10th. More than likely, again, on this YouTube channel live platform. And so that one's going to be going over the how do I rank my schools. So like as Enrique mentioned earlier, we do have resources that are going to be available in January. And there will be an article that just further explains that. It goes into depth, just information you need to know to consider for whenever you're ranking your schools. And then we'll also have the office hour as well. Just kind of go over it and just making sure that we have that information readily available in all our different platforms that we have. So be on the lookout for that. We will have that coming out, and then we will also the following month have information about the match, what happens afterwards, because that is also a huge chunk of our questions later in the cycle. So we will be addressing those as well.
And Sulema, if anybody has any questions, whether it be about the data that we presented here or about preparing for the match and they just can't wait till January 10th, what should they do?
Well, they should definitely, if you're a current applicant, definitely reach out to us via the internal messaging system that we have in your TMDSAS application portal. So whenever you log in, at the top right-hand corner, it'll say your name, your TMDSAS ID number, and then it'll say send a message to TMDSAS. And if you haven't been on there, it will say 0, I believe, or maybe 1 or 2 unread messages. Usually this is triggered whenever your application has been transmitted. You will get a message and it'll let you know that it's been transmitted. The schools have it on their end. And that is the best way to keep up with your application and communication with TMDSAS. And if there's any changes that need to be made to your application, definitely that is the first place to reach us at, because we do need to have those changes in writing in order to be able to make those changes on your application. So if you contact us there, it'll be much quicker, much easier. We do get through those really quickly, especially since now the application cycle is closed. It will not sit there. We will also have someone that will get to it. And if you are a prospective applicant or an advisor, evaluator, anyone else who may have a question, you are more than welcome to send that our way to info@tmdsas.com. Again, not very busy at this moment because obviously the cycle closed. So we will be getting to those questions for sure. And of course, calling the office as well.
And now for the record, there was never a point throughout the cycle when messages were sitting there for too long. And so now that we're off cycle, your messages will be answered a lot quicker.
A lot quicker.
Yeah. So, send us a message. I know this is a new platform that we're trying out here, but hopefully over time we'll be able to be more inclusive of folks on different platforms by moving our live sessions to YouTube. And keep an eye out for some great changes that'll make this type of data more readily available for you and enhance your overall pathway to one of our professional schools.
Yeah, and I will want to mention as well that all this new things that we're trying to incorporate, it is to make the experience better, have you guys provide more resources and just include this information in an informative way. So it is available to everyone, because we do want you all to succeed.
Mm-hmm. And if you have any questions or suggestions on what we can do to improve, again, info@tmdsas.com. We'd love to hear your feedback.
Yes, definitely. We'd love that, because we do take that information into consideration to provide better resources for you all. So I think that would be it. We don't have any questions. Again, you know where to contact us. Current applicants, instant message via your TMDSAS application portal. Anyone else, info@tmdsas.com email. We'll see you guys January 10th to go over how to rank your schools. And I believe that is all we have for you today. I hope everyone has a great rest of your holiday season. Now that you guys are out of school, take a break, relax. You definitely need it. Reward yourself, and we'll see you guys in the new year.
Alrighty. Thank you all so much. Have a good one.